Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to talk about sewage pumps, and we'd like to thank Lulu Callagher for liking Cindy's pig pictures on social media and sharing the podcast. When I was doing some research, I came across an article that was talking about old homes that have a toilet in the basement out in the open with no walls around it.
That's weird.
They call it a Pittsburgh potty and said a lot of old homes with a basement in Pittsburgh had a toilet installed in the basement for steelworkers. And many of the homes had a separate entrance that went right down to the basement, so steelworkers could clean up and change in the basement, use the toilet, and not track dirt and debris into the main level of the house.
What is a sewage pump?
A sewage pump is a pump that will eject not only water from a pump basin, but solids up to 2 inches.
Oh, so is that why it's called an injector pump, too?
Yeah, and sometimes you'll hear it called a sewage ejector pump.
That's what I'm saying.
And they're mainly used in homes with a basement toilet that's lower than the main sewer line. For a toilet in the basement, the toilet drains to the sewage pump basin, then the sewage pump pushes the waste and water up to the main drain. And in some homes with a septic system, the septic tank can be higher than the main drain, so water drains to an indoor or outdoor sewage pump basin, and then the sewage pump pumps the wastewater and the waste up to the septic tank.
Yuck.
A sewage pump has a raised base and a large opening on the bottom to pull in water, waste, and toilet paper, and it has a 2-inch discharge pipe that connects to the main drain. A sewage pump has an impeller that draws in the water and then pushes it out the discharge pipe, and the impeller is usually a disc with fins or blades that move the water.
Mm-hmm.
The sewage pump will sit in a pump basin, and when the float on the pump rises to a height to activate the switch, the pump will turn on, and then when the float lowers, it turns off the pump. The split-level house I'm in now, the toilet, shower, sink, and washing machine in the lower level drains to a pump basin where I have a sewage pump that then pushes up this water to the main drain.
What's the difference between a grinder pump and a sewage pump?
Grinder pumps have blades to grind waste and toilet paper, and this type of pump is primarily designed for applications where you have a high vertical height on the discharge pipe, or you're going into a pressurized sewer line. And they're very expensive. They use more energy. Most homes just need a sewage pump.
Okay. What is the difference between a sump pump and a sewage pump?
A sump pump is just for water, and they're primarily in basements inside a pump basin, which is usually a plastic container that's put into a hole in the basement floor.
Right.
And the top of the basin is flush with the basement floor. But in some older homes, you could have a cement-lined pit with a cover. Homes with a sump pump pit will have drain tiles around the foundation that move water from rain or snowmelt into pipes that drain into the sump basin. A sump pump is going to have an 1.5-inch discharge pipe. A sewage pump moves water, waste, and toilet paper, and the discharge pipe is 2 inches. A sewage pump is going to have a sealed cover and a vent pipe that connects to the plumbing vent system. And this will vent odor, gases, and equalize air pressure when the pump is working. The vent pipe is usually 1.5 or 2 inches. A sump pump cover is usually loose and just laid over the top of a basin, not bolted or sealed.
Right.
A sewage pump cover is usually bolted down to the top of the basin with a gasket, and that's going to prevent odor and gases from getting out. There's going to be a gasket around the discharge pipe and the vent pipe, and there's also a gasket around the electrical cord for the pump. Although in older homes you could have caulk or silicone around the pipes or the power cord to help seal the basin.
Okay.
A sump pump could have an extra vent pipe for radon mitigation. So you could have a sump pump with a sealed cover and a vent pipe, so it looks like you have a sewage basin, but it's venting any buildup of radon. And you should check out our episode called Radon Action Month for some tips Every homeowner should test for radon. The EPA says radon is the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers. And because radon is odorless and colorless, your home could have high levels of radon, and you'll only know by testing.
Right.
Then you would reduce the levels of radon by adding a radon mitigation system.
How do you remove an old sewage pump?
You're going to unplug it and then disconnect the check valve above the basin. A check valve with rubber couplings above and below the check valve is common, and each coupling will have 2 hose clamps. Once you unscrew the clamps, you should be able to pull off one of the couplings by sliding it off the check valve. If the coupling is stuck, you can use a utility knife to cut it off, and you should be replacing the check valve when you replace the pump.
Right.
You could have a check valve that's glued in place, and in that case, you're going to have to cut it off. Or you could have a check valve with compression fittings, so you would just unscrew the nut on each side. The vent pipe could have a PVC union or rubber couplings, or it could just extend down below the cover and be held in place with a gasket. If the vent pipe is solid and connected with a gasket on the cover, you can usually pry the gasket up the pipe so you can remove the cover, and there should also be a gasket around the power cord.
All right.
The cover is usually held in place with bolts. In older homes, the cover might be held in place with caulk or silicone, so you may have to cut it free with a utility knife and then pry off the cover. Once you remove the bolts and remove the cover, you can lift out the old pump.
You should wear old clothes for this, right?
Yeah,
and rubber gloves.
It's messy. Your toilet's going into this. So you'll probably be throwing away gloves that you use.
Yes.
And once you lift out the old pump, use a pipe wrench to remove the discharge pipe from the pump. The end of the pipe will have a male adapter that screws into the pump. If the threads are good and the new pump is the same height, you can reuse that section of pipe.
Okay.
But if there's a height difference, you're going to need new pipe and a new male adapter.
All right.
Most sewage pumps will be connected to PVC pipe. Although in the home I'm in now, the vent pipe is copper and the discharge pipe is PVC coming off the basin. Then it's connected to copper drain pipe above the basin.
Congratulations.
If you're replacing the section of PVC pipe coming out of your sewage pump, you'll need a 2-inch male adapter, which has male threads on one side that you're screwing into the pump, and a slip socket on the other side to connect to the pipe. And you would connect that with PVC primer and PVC cement.
Okay. What do you do with the old sewage pump?
You can just throw it in the regular trash pickup.
Well, you should be prepared and have trash bags around when you're pulling this out, because where are you going to place it?
Yeah, put it in.
Because I could see you standing there just holding it.
As it's dripping into the basin. Yeah, I would get heavy-duty garbage bags that are big enough so you can just put it right into that.
What should you look for in a new sewage pump?
A 0.5 horsepower sewage pump is good for most homes, but check the box for the discharge height and measure the vertical height of the pipe coming out of your pump.
Okay.
For a tethered float, check the basin size to make sure the float will operate properly. A tethered float switch has a float on a power cord and it has to swing up. So if you have a very small basin, it may not operate properly.
Okay.
A vertical float switch has a float on a vertical rod. The float moves up and down the rod and it doesn't swing out. It's the most versatile. A sewage pump with a vertical float switch will fit into any size basin.
Okay.
You should also compare the warranties when you're shopping for a sewage pump and fill out and send in the paperwork for the warranty.
Right. How do you install a new sewage pump?
In general, for most sewage pumps, you would screw the discharge pipe into the pump. If it's a new pipe, you want to drill a 3/16-inch weep hole in the pipe about the height of the top of the sewage pump. But check the manual for your model. If you're using the old pipe, make sure the weep hole is open or you have one. This allows any trapped air to escape when the sewage pump is draining the basin. If it forms an air pocket inside the sewage pump, the impeller won't be able to move the water when the pump turns on.
Okay.
Set the pump into the basin with the float facing away from the inlet pipe that's going into the basin. You don't want waste or toilet paper hitting the float.
I wonder how many people do that. I'm guessing a lot.
Yeah. Connect the power cord to the discharge pipe with zip ties or a hose clamp so it doesn't get caught on the float.
Mm-hmm.
Put on your cover and check the gasket. Replace the gasket if needed. You can use caulk or silicone for any areas that need it when you're finished. You want the cover, the vent pipe, the discharge pipe, and the power cord sealed so any odors and gas go up to the vent pipe.
Right.
Connect the gasket on the cover to your vent pipe. Connect the rubber coupling or union if you have that. Connect the gasket around the power cord and the discharge pipe. You're going to put on a new check valve and look for an arrow that shows the direction of the water flow.
Mm-hmm.
You want the arrow facing away from your sewage pump.
Okay.
The check valve is going to let water flow one direction and then it stops it from draining back into the basin.
Mm-hmm.
To connect a check valve with rubber couplings, loosen the top and bottom hose clamps and slide on the check valve. If you have a tight fit, you can remove the couplings and slide them on the pipe first, then line up the valve to the pipe and slide them back over the valve. And if you put some liquid soap on the pipe, it'll make sliding the couplings easier.
Cool.
When I took some training from Zoller, they said the check valve can be on the vertical or horizontal discharge pipe. Connecting the valve above the basin on the vertical pipe will make it easier to replace in the future, but with some basins you're going to have an elbow just above the cover and the check valve is going to have to go on the horizontal pipe.
Mm.
Some communities require a gate or a ball valve above the check valve on the discharge pipe, and that's going to prevent water from flowing back when you're replacing the pump.
Okay.
And if you've closed the valve above the basin, make sure you open it before you plug in your sewage pump.
This sounds important. Like you should make a note.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Once the cover is in place, the vent pipe and the discharge pipe is connected, plug in the pump. You can flush a toilet or run water into the basin to check the pump before you bolt down the cover.
Right. Do sewage pumps need maintenance?
Most don't require maintenance. Zoller recommends checking and cleaning the weep hole routinely, but check your manual for your model.
Okay. What are some problems that occur with a sewage pump?
If the pump isn't shutting off, the float might be stuck or the switch could be defective. Something could be caught in the discharge pipe, or you could have a plugged vent hole.
Okay. How long do sewage pumps last?
In general, 7 to 15 years, depending on the usage and the quality of the pump. I mark my wall when I install a new pump. Like the last pump I put in was in 2017. And I do that also on my temperature and pressure relief valve on my water heater.
Right.
When I took some training a few years ago, I was told to replace the sewage pump every 10 years, and that way you probably won't have a problem.
Well, you should replace it before you have a problem.
Right, exactly. Well, I had the pump fail once, and it was bad. So it flooded that area in my laundry room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was quite a cleanup job.
I'm sure. What are some tools you'll need to remove or install a sewage pump?
Depending on your setup, you're going to need a screwdriver, an adjustable wrench, or a socket wrench, and a pipe wrench. If you need to replace pipes or add fittings, you're going to need a hacksaw, PVC primer, and cement.
What are some top-rated sewage pump companies?
Zoller, it's Zoeller. Wayne, Wayne. Superior, Superior. And Liberty, Liberty.
Cool. Do you have anything else to add?
I think that's a good overview and a great starting point for your own research. Make sure you wear old clothes, thick rubber gloves, maybe some goggles, and have a heavy-duty trash bag ready for the old pump.
Yeah, clothes and gloves.
Right. The key is replace your old pump before it fails.
Right. Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 16 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter at FixItCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It home improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.